Elizabeth I and her government. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain the different features of Elizabethan government. Outline who were the key members of Elizabeth's government. Explain why Elizabeth I never married and what the consequences. England in 1558 was a divided country in terms of religion, with the population split between Catholics and Protestants. This division in religion had a significant impact on how people supported Elizabeth. Catholics saw Elizabeth as the illegitimate child of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. This is because many Catholics did not recognize the legitimacy of the marriage between Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. This meant that Catholics in England believed that Elizabeth I was not the rightful Queen of England. 3 million people lived in England and Wales, and it was a structured and hierarchical society. After a series of bad harvests in the mid-1550s, there was an increase in food prices and unemployment. England was at war with France and had lost Calais, which was its last military outpost in France. This was a blow to English prestige. A combination of war, rising unemployment, and inflation led to Elizabeth I inheriting a country with a debt of £300,000, making England on the verge of bankruptcy. Elizabethan propaganda. A significant reason for Elizabeth's popularity throughout her reign was her careful use of propaganda. She used portraits to project an image of legitimacy, wealth, success, wisdom, power, and control. Portraits were carefully controlled and approved by Parliament. Portraits were often the only way that many people would see an image of Elizabeth, as she never visited Wales or the North or South. Key features of Elizabeth's government. Elizabeth I, as Queen of England, was in control of the country and controlled the work of her government, as well as having the power to command the army and navy. Elizabeth I was surrounded by the royal court, which was made up of nobles, officials, and servants. Within the royal court was the Privy Council, which was the chief administrative and executive political body. The law courts were responsible for administering law and order, with a series of courts responsible for different aspects of law. Parliament's responsibility was to pass laws and taxes. Parliament was called and dismissed at the Queen's pleasure. Parliament was called 13 times during Elizabeth's reign. As MPs' freedom to speak out against government policy grew, it increasingly became a source of opposition. Key ministers. William Cecil, Lord Burghley, was Elizabeth's Secretary of State for most of her reign and was arguably her most important minister. Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester, held a variety of government positions and had romantic designs on Elizabeth. He had a serious rivalry with Lord Burghley. Sir Francis Walsingham was Secretary of State with a special responsibility for foreign affairs. He built up a strong spy network that helped stop plots against Elizabeth. Elizabeth I and the succession question. As a young, inexperienced woman, many people within Elizabeth's government wanted her to marry quickly and have children to establish a smooth succession after her death. This was particularly important because Elizabeth had no brothers or sisters to whom she could pass the throne. Elizabeth had lots of potential suitors, with the most important being Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester. This created divisions and jealousies in the royal court as well as the Privy Council. Elizabeth never explained why she never married. Some of the possible reasons were the potential for any husband to try to control Elizabeth and rule himself, the potential to upset factions if she married someone from England, the potential to upset countries if she married a foreign prince. Elizabeth only confirmed who she wanted to succeed her when she was on her deathbed in March 1603. Her closest relative, her cousin's son, James VI of Scotland. Test your knowledge. 1. When did Elizabeth I die? 2. Who was the Earl of Leicester? 3. Who was Elizabeth's Secretary of State for most of her reign? 4. What was the Privy Council? 5. How many people lived in England and Wales in 155?